Welcome back, everybody. We're excited to get another session going here at Call It Both Ways. If you didn't notice, we've got a nice guest here joining us today. Good old Kyle Wilson's dad. That's going to be the introduction of the day for me.
Thank you.
that's how I'm always going to know.
Welcome to the podcast. So we've talked about interviews and stuff like that for quite a while, finally making it happen. So apologize for the delay, and we won't even give you any excuses for that, but finally glad to make that happen. Before we get started, though, we want to thank our loyal sponsor, Sports Officiating Supplies. If you happen to need anything, apparel or accessory-wise, go see them. Visit them at sportsofficiatingsupplies.com. So from Pee-wees to the pros, Sports Officiating Supplies is your source for all things referee. They offer uniforms for 16 different state associations, as well as NCAA apparel. As a certified Smitty dealer, they offer a wide selection of uniforms for 8 different sports at competitive prices with personalized customer service. Owned and operated by active officials, we want you to make your first great call. So, Dad, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you for giving up some time out of retirement for us. So we've got a few questions for you. For those of you that don't know, Dad was a 35-ish year high school basketball official, still works football and fast pitch and slow pitch softball. But talk about just a little bit about your basketball career, what you remember from that, and we'll get into some of the specifics.
Started off in coaching in junior high and high school, and as I moved to different schools and I came back to Eastern Oklahoma, we were in Western Oklahoma at a place called Granite. We moved back to McAllister area, and at the time I got out of high school, and just a couple of people were asking me, why don't you try officiating? And I said, sure, hook me up. Well, of course, the first thing I had to do is buy some equipment, and just buying the shirt, the pants, and the whistle, and then show up with a pair of shoes. But the thing of the early part of it was the mechanical part for me. In the coaching part, understanding rules and stuff was good. It wasn't as sharp as it was in the latter years because I didn't really get into the book as much as I needed to. And as I started calling, of course, I went right into high school. I didn't do junior high. And the first 3 years was just basically local games. Then someone said, why don't you try to get into the playoffs, put in for it. But back in the 80s here in Oklahoma, there were hundreds of officials, and it was tough to get in. If you got a district, you were very lucky. But of course, here on our side of the state, it's done by assignment, and they do it by sign up. The coaches has to basically recommend you and put you on a list. And I made a few lists. I didn't make a great number of lists because there's so many veterans in front of me. So finally, really, when I got into it, I was in Eastern Oklahoma, in Wilburton, Oklahoma, and I really started going deeper into the playoffs. I mean, I was doing districts and regionals, but they wouldn't let you go very far because here in the state of Oklahoma, they wanted you to go to a camp. And believe me, guys, when I went to camp, that changed my the whole out part of officiating as far as the mechanical part, how to address situations and things like that. Of course, me being a coach, I knew a lot of the other coaches personally, and I didn't have a lot of problems because they knew me as a football coach and a basketball coach. And I didn't have a lot of, get to know me because they already knew me. But the thing of it is, though, from my side of it, was doing it the correct way as an official, not a coach. That's a hard thing for a guy to come out of coaching and learn to official because now you're making judgment on rules and you're not calling plays and things like that. And that was the big one. But camp was the key. And as soon as I went 2 years in a row to Tulsa, and they had the state OSSA camp there. And the second one, if you make a final in their basketball camp, you've got a good chance of going to the show. And sure enough, on my second year, I went and basically, you have to earn your way there. There's no problem. There's no question about that. But once you do get to a state on our side, then you have to work. Then it's your responsibility to get yourself back. In other words, you have to earn your way, and that's the big deal about it. But with the numbering of officials today, our numbers aren't as high as they are back in the other part in the 80s and 90s when I started. But the key part is going to camp. If I can pinpoint one thing that made me a better official, I mean, as far as mechanically, the judgment wise, I was blowing my whistle before contact was ever happening when I first started. And someone said, "Why'd you blow your whistle so early?" And I said, "Well, he's going to foul him." I just knew it was going to happen from being around the sport so long. Yeah, he's going to get him. But Wait till it happens. And then the mechanical part, like go and report a foul. I just walk over there and I'll be walking around and reporting, stop, color number, foul, the basics of the proper way to be an official. It makes you look better. It's more professional. And that's what you want to try to achieve as you get older and mature. Do that with your officiating. And you do that by not only, I'm not saying just by camp, you do that by getting with other officials. When you call your scrimmages, the knowledge that other people have, use that knowledge to make yourself better. And I'm going to use Austin as a point.
Oh gosh.
Whether or not we went to a game together, and when I first started 3-man, I had done 2-man for years, and I, in the sense of ball watching, and I know my responsibilities in the area, but we had a 3 together, and I put my hand up the same time he did, and he didn't say a word to me. He did it very professionally. When we went at halftime, he just said, "Why did you raise your hand? Why did you acknowledge my 3?" And he goes, I just told him, I said, "Well, it was a 3-point shot, wasn't it?" And he goes, "But was it in your area?" And he was correct. But the thing I'm saying, it's no different than you and I had the night at Stigler. Kyle has a call across the floor, and being the old dog I was, I saw it from my perspective. And we have a little comment in our officiating crew says, "Don't fish in your, go fish in your own pond." And I
was you fishing out of into my pond.
Yeah,
yes,
we've got a video of each other sitting at the half court line discussing, even as father and son though. But old dogs can learn new tricks too. But younger officials use the knowledge of an older official. Watch the game. Watch how they officiate. Block charges and stuff is a judgment call. Knowing the rules of how to set a legal screen and knowing basketball. But even this year, watching Kyle get into the rules, the question about basket interference, I learned something from him. He corrected me on something that I had been probably calling wrong for years. But what I'm saying is you can always learn. And that makes you a better official, and it makes the game better. Make yourself better.
I was going to say, did you have anybody along the way? I know for Kyle and I, we've mentioned Scott a lot and how he's been a big mentor, you as well. For you yourself, when you first got started, did you have anybody kind of pushing you to go to camps, or anybody pushing you to get better, or any?
When I went to my first regional final, one of the older officials that was there, I had the losers bracket, in other words, the afternoon session, and he said, "Have you ever been to camp?" And I said, "Lord, no. Do I need to go to camp?" He goes, "You need to go." And he goes, "Not just to make yourself better, because it'll give you a chance to go further." And that's why our side of the deal, they judge it, getting to know you. They need to know who you are. And that's how you make your that's the blueprint for you getting to be known, by your state association people.
Definitely understandable. Now, to that point, though, you're talking about being able to still learn from younger officials. I would say that's one thing I have. The more I've gotten into the book and going to camps and things like that, this isn't a shot at you, Dad, but my favorite term to tell some people that some of the common myths or misunderstandings when it comes to rules, I tell people, like, before I got into the book, I went to the Greg Wilson School of Officiating. There's some of those things that wasn't 100% correct, but I don't blame you, because the way you were taught by other veteran officials that may not have been in the book themselves specifically. But it's one thing that I've definitely seen a lot. I know Austin can say that too. We have to be careful about that, but there are things that as younger officials we may know that veterans might not, and we can pass that knowledge along just as much as we learn from our veteran mentors as well.
I think both of you will agree with me. Over the back, when you go to a little small school town, they're screaming it, and they don't even know what verticality means.
It doesn't help when you see some officials that actually call that and give that signal instead of just
when a player don't block out and they both go straight up in the air, they're going, "The screen, that's over the back." And of course, Kyle's big deal is he goes, "You show me that in the book, and I'll call it." But
I always say, "I'll give you the deed to my house. I will turn over the deed to my house."
I think we can just kind of touch on that real quick. For anybody that's not familiar with that, over the back, common term we hear in officiating when, the ball's up high in the air and another player reaches over another player to get it. And the thing is they can go over their back, quotes around that, but they can't go through their back. So there can't be contact going through them to go get the ball. So
that's right.
Just for anybody that may not know.
Talk a little bit about, especially in the thick of things when you were really busy high school basketball wise. You're like Austin and I, multi-sport official, worked football and fall, fast pitch in Oklahoma, straight into basketball, straight into slow pitch, usually in the spring. Talk about what went into that personal life wise, because I was a kid and I remember most of it. But between you and mom and balancing things between work and then Brock and I, obviously, what was that like?
Well, any official that's a veteran that's done it for a period of time will tell you their key to success is their family. That's the first part of it. You have to have someone that's willing to give, because you're not there. You're going to give up your family time, and you both know what I'm talking about. You're going to be gone, and it takes someone very strong, very stable to allow you to miss all that time. And you know, you do miss things. I mean, I'm not saying birthdays and Christmas and all that, but during the basketball season, there's things that go on that the wife wish you were there to help with. But you have to make those sacrifices, and that's, sadly enough, that's the family sacrifices. There's no question to it. But besides that, you get older as an official, one of the nicest things for me now is the comfort zone you have of being, you know, when you walk out there, you're in your own little zone, and it's from the experience you have.
Like
Oh
riding a
man,
bike?
don't think I still don't get sparklies in my stomach when I walk onto the floor, you know, for a final in Oklahoma City. But Jerry Smith, one of my younger assigners, in our first championship game, we were at the University of Oklahoma calling Class 3A football, and boy, I was over there just sparkly and ran around. He goes, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I'm excited." And he goes, "It's just another game. Call it no different. We did the regular season. It's another game. You get your focal points, do what you're supposed to do, and you'll really enjoy this game." And when
Yep.
the lights come on, you still get that little sparkle, but of course, when you blow that first whistle, throw that first flag, or it all gets out, and it's just another game. That's what you
I've
have to
heard you.
approach it as.
I've
We're
heard you
here for the
talk about
kids,
that.
and we're not here for us. You know, it's there for the kids.
But at the same time, it's not wrong to have those feelings or emotions because you did
Enjoy
earn
it.
your way
Oh
there and
man,
enjoy it
I
absolutely.
promise you that.
That's one I kind of lean on, especially when it comes to playoff time. I've heard you talk about that from Jerry Smith for a long, long time. And even like this last week, working area, or the week before, working my first regional championship, I loved it. Like I purposely or intentionally let myself feel those emotions before the game because it's fun. Like you earn your way there. These are
Yes.
important games. But as soon as that ball goes up, it's just business. It's another ball game. And fortunately, you beat that into me mentally, and that's something that comes in handy when it comes to those important games like that, especially the
And
loser goes home games.
and after you do it for a few years, the really special thing is the camaraderie we have amongst each other as officials. My Western Oklahoma friends, my Tulsa friends, my Oklahoma City friends. I'm going to see when I get to see them in state tournaments. Sometimes that's the only time I get to see them again is when we call together. That's very special. I mean, we make I'm not saying we phone call each other, but when we get to work together again, you do it over several periods of years, and when that comes to an end, you really miss it because they become special friends.
For sure.
That's a camaraderie you'll never lose amongst each other.
One of
I
the
agree there.
common themes we've talked a lot about is the biggest thing that we enjoy about officiating is the relationships, for sure.
No
Mm.
doubt. You
Especially
guys,
post.
I really appreciate y'all doing this. This is something for younger officials. When I started, we've been great to have just to talk about your situations, and I'm really proud of both of you for bringing it up because it's a learning tool for a lot of people.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
So that's
appreciate
great, great segue into my next question. So, what's something you would say to a brand new official who wants to be in your shoes, retired at 65, almost
Takes it.
65? Or you are
Yeah.
65. Yeah, in June. So, what's something you would say to a brand new official that wants to be in your shoes, a couple of years post retirement, 10 or so state tournament bids, X amount of finals, and wants to be where you're at?
Find you a veteran official, follow him. I mean, even if you start off just doing junior high, and see if he'll let you work with. Now that 3-man, it's always availability to bring a younger official on and see if he'll let you work with him 2 or 3 years, and you'll be how far it will bring you. Find you a vet and just lock in and just, I mean, everything knowledge wise you can bring from experiences, situations, everything you can get from that person will make you a better official. A younger official, find you an older official, and really just take advantage of it.
I say that's one thing. I know Austin's talked about the Mike Durhams and
Yes.
just the various veterans on our side and the Ron Thompsons of the world in our part of the world that made a big difference in taking us to those games. You and Bill Holt were that for me. You talked about being thrown straight into high school or not choosing to call
You
high school
were.
when you first started. You did that to me. You threw me into games that I had no business on, but you and Bill were there to fix any screw ups I had and tell me when to move and rotate because I had no clue what I was doing in 3-man. But that, for me personally, having experienced that, that was invaluable. I was learning on the fly. We've talked about in previous episodes a lot of the things I remember now are from screw ups I did have, and that's not something you want, but it's things that you log in your memory that you're not going to screw up next time you see it.
I think
We
once
took
you
Kyle to
big screw ups, you really do remember. It's one of those. Sometimes we get plays right, and we're like, oh, okay.
yeah.
But when you get a play wrong, it's up there in the front of the memory, and you're not
you'll
going to
forget.
put that. Yeah,
That's correct. I've learned from that myself. You're right.
same. What would you say? So, kind of segueing off what Kyle just said, what would you say would be the best way that we could help recruit? I know we've got this podcast going. We try to talk to as many officials as we can and put good rule based information out to everybody. But apart from those things, is there anything extra that's on your mind that you're kind of thinking, yeah, this would bring in new people or might get some interest?
Well, your mentorship, of course, is the key. No question about it. As an older official, but getting someone started and interested in it, get them on the floor first, and that's through the early part of the season. When you have an association meeting, of course, you can invite them to it, let them see, what's going on. You're talking about rules and situation, going over, let's say even the test, even questions they might learn from, but get them involved first. If you can get their foot in the door, it's hard today because people see all the screaming going on and hollering, and it's the negative on our side part. That's something we have to overcome, and something you have to bear. I realize that. That's the old term is you have to have thick skin or strong back, but it's get them started, get the interest started, and it's not easy. But like I said, when I first started, hundreds of officials, people had respect for officials when I started, and that respect is not there anymore. That's the sad part about it, but it's true. And that's, the administrations have to work together, officials have to work together, and that's the only way it's going to correct. But the people in the stands, that's something we can't control. But respect, just respect. It's a game, and people treat it a lot more than it is.
I think that's one thing that we at least hope to do through this podcast, and eventually, hopefully, do some camps, maybe specifically ourselves with some other our veteran mentors and things like that. But aside from that, one thing we've got to do is be a lot more intentional with younger kids, and we've got plans to hopefully be able to go into some of the schools next year, get with ads and coaches, and get to go talk to kids that, especially those juniors and seniors. Hey guys, the end of the road's coming. We've all seen the percentages of how many kids actually make it to the next level, whether it's JUCO or Division One. It's very, very few. And this is a great way to stay involved and also make some pretty good money. And that's not something I personally look is. I don't want to use money as the main recruitment tool because I think that's a way to not retain people. But at the same time, I made so much more money in college working little league and junior high and what high school games I did with you guys than I ever would have working at a gas station or wherever for minimum wage. I was making 500 to 1,000 a week.
On top of the money portion, the growth that you get in every other area of your life. I mean, your poise, your communication, your intelligence, because you're always learning something. You're improving in so many other areas of your life by being an official. It's not just about, I mean, there's just so many different things that help for
the money. You have to admit, Austin, is better. We started at $65 a night when I first started, and you say, "Yeah,
that was for 2 games. That was for 2 games.
That was for 2 games too, but that was a lot of money back then too, man.
For those, that's about a minimum for one high school game nowadays.
It's come a long way, baby.
What year was that? Your first or?
Austin, 1985, I believe, 82 or 85. I was in Stillwater when I started. I did the intramurals at the Oklahoma State University is where it got me started. $10 a game.
Yeah,
I earned it.
That's right. I was also an intramural baby, so we definitely earned our money there.
He was doing the officiating class at intramurals at Fort Smith.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Austin wasn't. I don't think you were there that night, but Dad and I actually were asked to come put on a little clinic for UAFS intramurals, and it was mostly Dad. That was probably 10 years ago, so I was more of a student at the time, anyways. But definitely, maybe another place we could find other officials, getting with some of the intramural programs around and turning those guys into school officials. Yeah, so you mentioned Dad.
I would like to see the colleges get involved. Carl Albert
Yeah.
Junior College in Poto and Eastern States College in Wilburton had officiating classes for 30 years. But the guys that did that were officials, and they worked for the school. One was the athletic director, Jerry Smith, just a while ago, and Joe Thomas was a Big 8 football official out of Wilburton, Oklahoma, and they both had officiating classes. They took those players under non-season and put them out, and they worked junior high ball only with a high school official. And those guys come out, a lot of them get carried over in their careers. They're gone.
Yep.
Those days are gone. Just like their youth is at Fort Smith. It'd be nice if they had a officiating class. Fort Smith's a big place, a lot of places to call. But
actually, something that's in the works. I've actually, I think it was it. Yeah, there is a sports officiating class, and I even took it, and ended up, long story short, teaching it. So I was teaching it once a week, and my deal with the professor, I won't name him, throw him under the bus, but my deal was I taught once a week and got to skip the other 2 days a week. But that's actually something we're in the works of, and I've talked to that coach / teacher about getting into that class and being able to speak to some of the students in it. So you mentioned just a little bit ago about administrators and coaches and players and officials as well, and the respect that used to be there pretty prominently that isn't now. What is something that you think we could do specifically to be intentionally trying to improve those relationships?
Yeah. A lot of schools are making school policy now about if you're ejected, you don't come back to another game. Some of the schools are doing something about it. So that's a step forward. But you're regulating the floor. You're not regulating the stands. That's something they just don't have part of. That's the administrator's part. And it's getting the states associations, to get them to be involved and be active and do something to help us. That's all I really know. There's not a win-win. I mean, just an answer, because I think it'd already been applied if it was.
I think you're right on that. I think it's all admin. I'm going to kind of switch tones back to some of the games you worked. I know Kyle mentioned you've worked a lot of state tournaments. You had some cool venues. Is there a top, maybe 2 or 3 places you've ever went, or 3 venues, cities?
He's got some cool ones.
Or any. Well, I guess best thing you can think of here. I'm kind of curious on
Tournament of Champions. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I've got your list in my head already from chasing you around as a kid. I hope you cover all the ones. If you don't cover them, I will.
All right. Man, it's been
Put
so
you to
long.
the test. Yep.
Oklahoma City. I had a 4A semifinal. Was it Classen in Millwood? Yep. Anyway, a young player named Mezabuki was playing. He had signed with Kentucky.
Oh, you're talking about Victory Christian and Star Spencer.
Victory Christian. There you go. And my gosh, I'd never given probably one technical foul in my prior 10 state tournaments, and we gave 3 like at halftime. These guys were going at each other. They were, and poor old Kyle was sitting there on the side. I brought him down to the scores table on the side, and he made the mistake and turned around and tell him, "Be quiet, that's my dad." And they were throwing M&Ms at him, and that made it memorable. But I had a personal friend on the side over there that moved him. That was one. And then Blake, OCS.
You had both of them. You had both the Griffin brothers, Taylor and Blake Griffin, who were 2 years apart.
University of Oklahoma. That was really special because their dad was the coach, and 2 great players, but that was 2 class acts. That was really a highlight. Good to call a major college player and get to know him. And there was a player from Stroud, Oklahoma that did the shot and the disc that played at OU, and that's been so many years ago. That was the third one.
It'd be Kevin Bookout.
Yeah, Kevin Bookout. Those are my 3.
You're being your career historian. You're forgetting, you didn't mention specifically. So the big house we've talked about is we're talking about working the state tournament games. There's a lot of basketball history in Oklahoma there. That's unfortunately they're going to demolish it after next year, but lots of history there. To some, it's just a big old old arena. But if you've been, especially if you're from Oklahoma, Dad's gotten to do that multiple times. You walk out on the floor, especially for Championship Saturday. They play the song Oklahoma, and then you hear the announcer say, "And welcome to the big house." That's like I get chills. I get chills just thinking about that because it's that special as far as high school basketball. But there is one really important one you're forgetting. It's a little bit south from us in Texas that you got to call at. And then I believe Brock actually ended up on TV in the NBA game that night.
Oh, when we went to the Mavericks, Bill and I, my partner for 20 plus years, 2 schools could play before a professional game. They'd let them play on the floor. and it's for his own where the Mavericks play, and I don't remember the arena. It's anyway. And on Highway 75, Bill got locked up in traffic. About 3 minutes before I tip it off by myself, he walks on the floor, and that was I was kind of sweating bullets there for a second.
It worked
But anyway,
out.
yes. And Kyle and I had the opportunity to call in Oklahoma City, but I had knee problems that time, so I didn't get to fulfill that one. That would have been another one.
I worked that one. That would have been cool to have you with because I had Bill, your longtime
Yeah,
partner, Bill Holt, with me. I took
yeah, it
another
would have
young
been
gun
special.
with us for that one. That was probably my biggest venue to get to work in so far. But let's talk about full circle and relationships. That's a fond memory of mine as a kid. I was very young, but can still see you working, and it's the old like turquoise green Mavericks logo in the middle. I can still see all that. But talk about full circle and relationships. I actually worked a regional championship last Saturday. Dad was in person to watch it with me. I worked the regional championship with one of the two coaches that coached that game that you called.
Wow.
That's neat. Really neat.
That'd be Barry Hudson.
How about that?
Yeah, that's so cool. I will say it's cool that I mean y'all have gotten to work games together and stuff, and I will say that's the one thing that I wish my dad would have been in the health to be able to officiate together. I can only imagine how neat that is for y'all to get on the floor,
Special
field,
moments, great memories.
wherever you. Very special for sure.
Something the older I've gotten, I've become a lot more appreciative of every time, and like being present. I'll just put it that way in the games we get to win. Now, obviously, once we're in the middle of the game and things are going, it's just business, and especially there's people who'll tell you that Dad mentioned that Stigler game a couple of years ago. You could see me on film pointing like, you're over here, I'm over there, you're 80 feet away. Football's the same way. I actually, Dad's our white hat on our high school football crew, and I white hatted 2 games this year. And on film, you can see us in the backfield arguing about just little stuff, but I enjoy every single second of that. So my last question for you, Dad, talk a little
and
bit
it's
about.
not Family Feud neither.
No, it's not. And once it's over, it's over. But I feel like I'm probably his biggest critic, and sometimes it's in the
He
middle of the
is.
game. We
And
hold
he's
each other
right. The
accountable.
sad part about it, he's right 99% of the time.
Oh gosh, don't fill his head
That's
anymore.
funny.
It needs to be.
I know.
So my last question before we let you go, now that you're still officiating, obviously football and softball, but as far as basketball goes, now that you're 2 years removed, talk a little bit about some of the things you enjoy now as a retired basketball official getting to do.
Just getting to watch other people call, and the way we're brought up, our expectations, getting to see those fulfilled by younger officials trying to go forward, make themselves better, and work. There's the disappointment for some work hard. I'm not trying to put a negativity on. I like, my expectations. What is my own personal, but Terry Condor or Bill Holt, whatever. When we walked there, you knew what was going to happen, and you get to know the younger officials as well. That's really being nice. And I'm going to be honest with you, getting to watch you go forward is really the thrill of my heart. And then you go on and carry on what we started, honestly.
So when you say that, what would you say that what it's like to watch Kyle work his high school and college ball now that you're retired? What do you think about getting to be able to watch him?
I try not to critique him, but of course he'll ask. He goes, "What do you think?" And I'm gonna be honest about one thing. It was his arm. I was taught to touch my forearm to my ear to get my arm to go straight up. And of course, he's out here with his arm hung out like a country boy. And I said, "Touch your ear." He goes, and we went to Kellyville this past weekend, and I took a picture of it. I was so proud of him. He had that arm very straight in the air.
There you go.
You learn just like I learned from you, Austin.
Very intentional about it.
That's awesome. We nitpick each other all the time on plays like that.
That's right.
Just small things. I think the other day I did in a college game, I did a high school mechanic, and Kyle, one of the first things he sends me before I'm even off the floor is "Gotcha,"
But Austin, if I can take that one step farther, Bill Holt and I did not have video like you and Kyle watch. Y'all, that's what I'm so impressed with. When we drove home together, we critiqued each other. Did I miss that call? I mean, Bill could remember a play with 3 minutes and 30 seconds in the second quarter. I mean, he was just that focused on to it. And as we drove home for 20 years, that's how we made each other better officials. And you guys get to watch it on video because back then we didn't have video to go to. And it's one of the tools you get to use. But yes, don't be afraid. Don't be negative. Learn from it, though. Don't be afraid to take criticism. What I'm trying to say, learn from it. If you make a mistake, and try to learn from it and make it better.
I think that's definitely the way to go about it.
Go ahead, Austin.
I was gonna say I think that's definitely the way to go about things because I'm really bad. I don't want to just sit on plays that I got wrong, but that's definitely how I get better. We talk about just the ones that we get wrong are up here, and the ones that we got right are just kind of second nature. Those are okay, but I definitely go back to those ones I missed and what can I do better to improve on this the next time something like this happens.
And when it comes up again, that light comes on, man. Bingo.
For sure.
I can tell you from experience.
All right. Well, that is it. I really
Thank you, gentlemen.
appreciate your time, Dad.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks.
Appreciate
for
it.
what you do for us and what you still do as a veteran official, even though you're retired and going to games. I've heard from other officiating friends of the playoff games you made pit stops at just to go watch, and younger officials. I can't say it for all of them, but by and large, they all appreciate seeing a Greg Wilson or a Bill Holt or whoever walk into a dressing room just for simple critiques because you mean well and you obviously have been there.
And you older officials, old dogs, can learn new tricks.
Sure. Sure.
All
Thank
right.
you, guys.
Well, that is going to be a wrap for this latest episode. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Apologize that it's been a little bit of a break between episodes. We've been burning up the road for sure. I know for me, what,
Thousands of miles in a couple weeks.
yeah, 12 playoff games, none of them really very close. I think an hour and a half or so was my closest games. But yeah, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Before we let you go, I want to remind you, if you need any sports officiating supplies, go see our friends at sportsofficiatingsupplies.com. From Pee Wees to pros, Sports Officiating Supplies is your source for all things referee. They offer uniforms from 16 different state associations as well as NCAA apparel. As a certified Smitty dealer, they offer a wide selection of uniforms for 8 different sports at competitive prices with personalized customer service. Owned and operated by active officials, we want you to make your first great call. Visit them online at sportsofficiatingsupplies.com. And remember, if you're buying basketball apparel or accessories, type in /discount/both ways and you'll get 10% off.
Thanks again for joining us, Greg. We appreciate you coming on. It means a lot to us.
Thank you for having me. An honor.
We'll see. Yes, sir. And we'll see everybody next time on Call It Both Ways.